Hello, everybody. It's me, Kirsten, and this is the It's Giving Mystical podcast. And this is your podcast for the week ahead, the week of January 24th. Okay, so listen, you guys, it's been so crazy. I usually record the podcast like Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe if I'm, running late Thursday, and then I have time to listen to it, edit it, add all the music and visuals and all of that stuff. And I tried to record it on Thursday because I was running late this week. Recorded it 4 times. The first 2 times the audio didn't take. I don't know what was going on with the settings. I couldn't figure it out. And then I finally figured it out, and then the next 2 times it didn't process. So I recorded the podcast 4 times in one day, like the full talking and like the whole show, and then didn't have anything to show for it. Listen to my voice. It's like outraged for me. Outraged on my behalf. And then I tried Friday again, and I could not record it. So I was having the strangest moment, and I really sat and I felt actually kinda guilty that this wasn't out on time. So much, and didn't understand. I've really been struggling since I turned this into a video podcast for it to happen smoothly, for, like, the processing and the technology. And in the beginning, it was okay. It was just like, I'm gonna work out the kinks of it. But I slept on it last night, really sat and, like, thought about it this morning, and was like, "I need this to be easier." I love recording this podcast, like, absolutely love it. I love spending time with the tarot this way. I love spending time out in the ethers with you this way. I love the connection, even though sometimes it's one way or it's often one way. I really do feel the connection of all of us, the people that I work with or people we communicate on the side about what's happening in the ethers this week. And I think that I've decided for now that I'm gonna go back to the audio format. And I guess maybe I feel, to be honest, like a little self-conscious on camera, or I just like see it with this critical eye that really takes away from the energy of the podcast. But it just adds this layer of perception that takes the joy out of it for me. And I don't want to do that. I don't the world we live in, it's so complicated as it is, and I just feel like there's no room for that. So, sat down today to record this. The other thing that I thought was, am I working with the wrong card? Like I kept I kept sitting with the card I pulled, full disclosure, was the 9 of Wands. And I really was thinking about this idea of the wounded warrior, this idea of how we prepare ourselves for the next battle, meaning that, most of us, especially if we're kind of sitting here investigating our narratives, investigating the tarot, investigating ways to heal ourselves or to become more integrated, empowered, and satisfied people in the world, contributing people who feel like their work matters, their days matter, their time here matters in whatever that looks like for you, their art matters. When we have gotten to that point, it's often because we've had challenges to overcome. And like, look at you because you've overcome all of the challenges, and it's not always easy. And it's not where we expect, like often the pain or the biggest challenge or the thing that drags us back into the dirt is often not the thing we see coming. So kudos to you and me and all of us who continue to endure every day. And the 9 of Wands really speaks to that. It speaks to this idea of the wounded warrior, but not as less so that that's true, and more like that deserves to be recognized when the 9 of Wands comes up. But more importantly, like, how are you prepared for the next thing? And there's a way of being prepared that is exhausting, that is, hyper vigilant, and nobody can be trusted, and I can't turn my back for a second, and the world is out to get me, versus a sense of, okay, I know who I am. Like, I know that day after day, battle after battle, I'm still standing, and I can relax into trust myself, feel safe in myself, knowing that when the world does require a fight from me, or the world does require effort from me, or the world does require that I rise to the challenge, I trust myself. Like, I know who I am. I know why I've come, and when it's time to stand up, I will stand up. So that's always kind of the conversation around the 9 of Wands. So I was thinking to myself, well, maybe that card's not right, right? Like maybe there's something about that message that isn't appropriate. So I leave it for you in case any part of it resonates. But I also decided to pull a fresh card today because I don't know, like Wednesday through Friday felt like this weird quagmire. I was like, what's happening? And so I pulled today for us a fresh card, and I pulled for us the 9 of Wands. That's not true. I pulled for us the Queen of Wands. So I guess you had to hear the 9 of Wands one way or the other. but I pulled the Queen of Wands this time. And there's just this very clear messaging around your warmth and your light. And the Queen of Wands is, we love her. She's kind of the bad bitch of the tarot. There's something about her that the joining of the wands, the masculine, fiery, explosive energy, creative energy, sexy energy, matched with the feminine archetype of the queen. She comes that you can like think across literature and mythology and, pop culture, who holds this energy for you, right? One of the ones that always comes to mind is Rihanna. Like she just has this like confidence and this sexiness and this swagger, but also this sense of being regal, the sense of being untouchable in a way, fully at home in herself. And, that's just a persona, right? So I don't want to put that on the real woman. But the persona she puts out in the world has that Queen of Wands energy. You think about who else in your world or who else you would kind of point to and say, that is a woman who knows who she is and why she's here and what her gift is. Like she honors her light. And so that's always true of the Queen of Wands. It's always asking us to take measure of where we're honoring our light, honoring what we're here to do, honoring our fire, our passion, and where maybe we're steamrolling people with that. So that's kind of always the balance with the Queen of Wands, right? Like you deserve to be lit up and fierce and free, and so does everybody else. And the Queen of Wands can be a little bit, she can kind of push down resistance to that. And so that's something to be aware of. But what came up when I pulled her was really the sense of, are you protecting and honoring your light? And to wrap that into the Hermit year, a lot of conversation has come up around the cloak so far. Like that's one of the symbols of the Hermit that keeps resonating and keeps kind of getting called to attention. But one of the other major symbols of the Hermit card is the star and the lantern. And there's something about the Queen of Wands, her light is much broader than that. She's much more associated with like sunlight, with heat, with fiery passion. So her fire doesn't feel like it's contained in a lantern. But if we imagine like that we kind of scale up the idea of the lantern, and we kind of scale up the idea of the hearth, we scale up the idea of the cauldron, and we make that bigger, we give that more room to roam, that feels like that's here with us. Really understanding your sacred light, really understanding that there is only one of you and that there is a flame that you offer the world. There's a light that you offer the world. And it comes down to this sense of you're here to do something specific that only you can do. Are you really honoring that? And it's so tricky. It's so tricky. The programming around what we're supposed to do runs deep, and it runs deep into things we can't even really understand about our childhood. It runs deep into the ways we've had to show up in relationships with other people. It runs deep into what we're allowed in terms of our work. It runs deep into the material reality of what we have to do to survive every day. But there's something about the call, the energy this week that is saying to you, like, just take a moment to touch back in, to check back in with your sacred fire. Just take a moment and with your journal, out in nature, in meditation, just check back in. There's a sacred flame within you, your dharma. You're here to do something. You're here to understand something. You're here to offer something. Check back in with that flame and make sure that it's well tended to. So, what might that look like? It might have to do with how you treat your body. It might have to do with how you engage with your heart. It might have to do with how you engage with your fierceness. Love is not a soft thing. We can have this sense of like, well, if I'm aligned with love or I'm aligned with source, that means that I'm soft and open and welcoming. And that just like that's programming, dude. Like that, I call bullshit on that. Love is a fierce, fierce power in the world. And don't get confused that to be aligned with love means to be soft and gentle all the time. To be aligned with love means that you don't allow bullshit in your space, in your mind, in your field, in your relationships, in your community. It means that you defend the ones who can't defend themselves. It means that you don't give away your authority, that you understand that the only one coming to save you is you. The only one coming to save us is us. And there's this important distinction between love as something that includes and love as something that fights for. And so when we're thinking about our sacred flame, just have a sense of how you're fighting for your right to be free, to be yourself, to express yourself, to live your life, to, untethered, unbound. And the Queen of Wands is in kind of direct conflict to this truth that exists in the Devil card, right? This idea that we're all bound to something, we're all tethered to something, we're all in service to something. The Queen of Wands really fights that, right? Like her journey, her search is to be free. Her search is to be untethered. Her search is to be able to, follow her passion, follow her sacred flame and let nothing stop her. There's a lot of conversation right now in the collective, in the world, like a lot of feeling of helplessness. And this idea that love is soft, it just colludes with this idea of, well, then you're helpless. If you're a good person, if you love, that you need to be soft and open and welcoming and understanding. And the Queen of Wands is the reminder of that's not what love is. That's not what your sacred fire is. Your sacred fire is, I know what I'm here to do, and I'm willing to fight for my right to do it. And that can often mean I'm also willing to fight for everyone's right to do it. I'm willing to fight for people's rights to make the choices that align with the life that they crave, dream of, and deserve. So, Queen of Wands is always like a call to your freedom, your heat, your fire. But this week, it really does feel like the sense of, where are you separated from your sacred light? Where are you separated from your sacred fire? Where are you giving away your authority around that? And just touch base with it, touch back in. The reason my life looks like this is because this is what mattered to me. This is what I valued. Am I living in alignment with that? Am I honoring that on a day-to-day basis? Am I willing to speak to the truth of that? Am I willing to feed that flame? That feels like the very clear message of the Queen of Wands. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that all of the confusion, I know it was kind of short and sweet, but I do want to kind of get it out into the world to be with you. And I think the message is really clear and simple. Check back in with your sacred fire. Check back in with the things that light you up and turn you on and make you excited about getting out of bed in the morning, and see how your life is aligning with that, and check yourself and make adjustments accordingly. There's something about that call that is obviously infused in the Hermit year, but particularly infused in this week ahead. Don't let fear and confusion and distraction seduce you. Like, don't let that seductive call make you drive your ship into the rocks. Like, your ship is here to sail a certain course. Like, you're here to do something. And that's not, again, like, not necessarily about where you arrive. It's about how you move through the ocean, like how you surf the waves. And there's something about this Queen of Wands that's like, just check back in. Check back in. Like, you are not extinguished. You are not beholden to anyone but your soul in terms of what you're here to do and why you're here to do it. And that sacred flame wants your attention. It wants your attention, and it wants to be protected, the lantern and the star. It wants to be protected. It wants to be cultivated. It wants to be nurtured. It wants to be, protected from the winds, the noisy, seductive winds of the world might want to extinguish you. You'd be a lot easier to control, a lot easier to manipulate if your fire was extinguished. You'd be a lot easier to control if you were separate from your fire, if you didn't realize how much it matters. Okay, let me know how that goes. Would love comments, would love to hear from you. And I don't know, just know I'm out here. I'm out here too, fighting the good fight, trying to stay in community, trying to stay grounded in my own fire, trying to make sure that my movements align with the work I'm here to do. And sometimes that includes something silly like, dude, the video podcast is confusing you, and who are you doing that for? Why is that? Like, because you're supposed to? Because you're supposed to have a video podcast? I hear that. And also, when it literally pushes against my energetic field as a drag, then I have to kind of honor the truth of that too. So I'm sure it'll come back to video, but right now this feels good. This feels like what needed to happen. And I'm so sorry the podcast is late. I take my responsibilities seriously. I take my patterns and my art seriously. So the fact that I am a day late it means something to me. I appreciate it. I sit with it. I don't let that pass by. And I send you guys so much love. And I want you to know how much it means to me personally, but also to the collective, that you are aligned with your fire. That really, really matters, especially right now. Talk to you later. Bye.